Hello, everyone. My name's Stump, and this is going to be the evolution of glitch speedrun routes in Pokemon. I can. Oh, my. All right. So, hello, everyone. My name's Stump. I use they, he pronouns, and this is going to be the evolution of glitch speedrun routes in Pokemon. And so, just a bit about me. I've had some, well, I was involved a lot more in this previously than I am now, but this is, I sort of really got my deeper start in speedrun routing with doing things with the early gen, mostly 1 and 2 Pokemon games. Like those were my main speed games in like maybe 2015 through 18 or so, and that was sort of a golden age of discoveries that really changed the routes. Frequently having to build routes around new things we found, and often having lots of full reroutes. But nowadays I mainly do the original Crashes and Spyros, but yeah, I still enjoy seeing what's in the world of this and just reverse engineering and looking at what's going on inside some of these games too. Yes, 20. Yeah, that's. You know, even before I knew about that there were wider communities about this, though. As a kid, I timed some completions of Spyro 120%, not even thinking about strats and things like that, and never really got below 3 hours or so on that. But shows that I was running earlier than I would normally think about that. Oh, and since this is a little technical, if I'm in an industry like that, so I don't speak for anyone. So, we're mainly talking about Gen 1 Pokemon games here, but in the early gens, there were typically a glitchless category where don't use game-breaking glitches. With Gen 1, it's a little complicated just because of some oversights in it. And an any percent no save corruption category, because in those games, by interrupting a save, you could get into all kinds of fun states where you can wrong warp to the end in a matter of minutes, and that's not as interesting as setting it up using standard, as it were, like glitches in the game that don't involve interrupting it while saving. Red and blue are considered the same game for speedrunning purposes. There's also the catch 'em all categories, which are their own kind of fun. Typically using a lot more of those glitches to get everything without directly setting up Pokedex flags. I have done this panel at a couple different conventions in past years, and a much more technical version of it at a couple of security conferences in the before times, which was its own kind of great time. But if we, so we're mainly going to be talking about blue NSC and yellow NSC, those being the glitch no save corruption categories. And early summer 2014 is about when I first really got deep into this. There was Now, the blue route relied on underflowing your inventory size by having one of the saffron guards take a drink item away from you. And the yellow no save corruption route involved having to hit a 1 in 8 chance of something that takes multiple minutes to set up again 40 minutes into the run. So, as you can imagine, very few people did more than a very small number of runs of yellow NSC at that time. And yeah, we knew about Brock Skip, but we still had the Saffron Guard underflow. But, well, we found a way to, we found a way in which this isn't the usual way I'm viewing my notes for this. But essentially, the way that what underflow does is so your items, the items in your bag are stored with both a count of how many entries there are in your bag, and there's a terminator at the end that represents the cancel button. You can make those become inconsistent with each other. And that's what happened when the guard took away your drink item, because that went through a code path that only looked for the terminator and not the length. And so if the guard removed your only, emptied a stack of items, it would decrement that count, underflowing it to 255 because it's an 8-bit value. And then you can move your cursor in the item, in your item bag, down to that many entries, and use it to swap items around and toss items to just modify the memory that comes after it. Like, let's see here. If we were to, where did I put this? Oh, I need to switch this to red. All right, let's try that again. All right, so we have, here's that byte. So in this window to the left here, I'm just looking at the RAM of the game as it's going. So that 6 means we have 6 different items here. And that X defend and the quantity of it that we have, well, we're alternating between item type and number of it that we have. So item type 4 we have 1 of, item type hex 1-4 we have 1 of, up to item type OX42, that is that X defend where we have 255 of it, where that we have a 5 in the ones place and, well, 25 in the place before it. But we also have that fresh water there. So if we walk in front of this guard, the 6 became a 5, and it moved, this slot with the fresh water in it was taken away, and it moved what remains back. So if we go back to before we did that, and we toss stacks until we, Sorry, I double hit the A button there. You can see that byte is now 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And my items are not moving up below that because when it is moving the items back to take up the space that I tossed all of, it's stopping at a byte of value 255 because it thinks that's the end of the list. So we still have that fresh water there. And, well, we subtracted 1 from that 0, so we can scroll through the end of that and into what lies beyond. So essentially, the name of the game in the no save corruption categories was to achieve this state. Because once you have it, you pretty much win the game. Because you can use this, and through some swapping around of items and some tossing of items, well, you can give yourself instant text. You can change where your this went to last map. This happens to be a quantity byte, so I can swap one of those large stacks down to it, go down to go down to, oh, I was off by 1, but you can see that is not where I'm supposed to be. But it's so that you can do this. Champions are indeed honored for their exploits here. But, well, there was that. So, we found that, well, it was found that you didn't need to have your drink item taken away by a guard to have that happen. And by doing some swaps of item stacks, and having item stacks merge when you swap stacks of the same item, you can get into that same state without needing to get to Celadon City, which really shortens the route, as you can probably imagine. Before this just became the only type of overflow we ever used. This was initially called dry underflow for not involving a drink item, but that was one of the major things that happened around then. Taking away the need to, we didn't need to go beyond the area between Celadon and Vermilion cities, which is quite a bit less of the game than getting all the way to Celadon City. So, that's, that was improving how underflow was achieved. Another trick that that we knew for essentially ever was skipping Brock by saving in front of the guy at the east end of Pewter City who forcibly walks you to Brock's gym until you defeat Brock. But there's a bit more going on where when you do that. So, if we pre-position our cursor here on save, let's see. Yes. So, that byte here I have highlighted is part of, what the game does to handle the forcible walking to Brock's gym. So you can see that it took on a value other than 0 with a bunch of bits set. Those, that's for what, and it's 0 now. That's for disabling some of your buttons so that you can be walked over to there. So if we do this, I can bring my menu up, buffering that off of canceling that text box, and then we can save. And then if we reset and we load the save, yeah, that whole actual walking sequence gets skipped. And then we can, well, be here. So the game needs to have a sequence of steps to walk you through when this person leads you to Brock's gym, and the game determines, the game loads those depending on where you're standing when you do this interaction. So if we do the interaction when we are standing somewhere else, we can cause the game to look, well, under normal circumstances, if you did this, the game would appear to soft lock. What it is really doing is marching through the entire address space, trying to find the coordinates of where you are standing here so that it can load the list of commands pointed to by the bytes after that in the table. But it will never find them for if you're standing in an unintended place, unless you make. But you can make it find something by setting up your party in just the right way, through some things you can do in battles leading up to this point, where some bytes in your party will contain the right values and point the code trying to lead you to the gym to a bunch of garbage that is a lot longer than it ever should be. And so we can see that a bunch of the memory that highlighted byte is in just got trashed. But, well, the byte that we have highlighted is 0, so none of our buttons are disabled. But because of the effect of the walking, of the forced walking, collision isn't being enforced. So you can just go and do this and get right to where you need to go to have a home base for the rest of your run. Someone watching said it's a sea of green, and I love that. But this is known as Brock through walls, from taking Brock's skip and taking what was conventionally thought of as just a soft lock in it, and seeing that there is something more going on that we can take advantage of. And with that, that gets us into Saffron City, which, given its central location, turns out to be a really nice hub for doing the rest of the run. For reasons, you need to sort of fix your state by changing your box and then resetting, because you can't bring the menu up in the normal way. But once you have done that and reset, you're just in Saffron City. When you walk past the guards, they actually will force you they will force you out of the city when you walk in front of them, because they just force you in the direction that is away from the city, even if you came from the direction in the city. But this... this made a lot of... this allowed cutting out a lot of the run, because it gave more convenient access to places where the trainer fly glitch can be performed, which is doing that twice is an essential part of achieving a stack of 255 items in your bag so that you can do the dry underflow. So, I remember the time late in the summer of 2014 when this one was discovered, and all the sudden rerouting effort there was when there was just this huge break in what we were able to do. So that was the little something more. And then something like that happened in Yellow after, about a year after that. This is one I had a bit more direct involvement in, but it was noticed that, so Pikachu in Yellow has a similar little buffer of step commands for it to follow you as you walk around, for it to do some of its scripted movements when it interacts with some other NPC Pokemon that have their own sprites in various places, such as Bill's house and the fan club, or just even tiny things like moving out of your way in the cutscene in Oak's Lab, where you and the rival are handed the Pokedexes. But Pikachu only is able to follow, do those commands if on screen. So if Pikachu is not on screen and we walk around, commands will just build up in that and eventually run past the end. And so, all right, let's see, we gotta switch to Yellow here. Yep. All right, so there's Pikachu, nice and happy there. And in this state, you may notice we have a somewhat unusual loadout of items here. So this set of items, as well as the exact stat experience values on a Gengar that is in our party, that turns into something that we can use this Pikachu off-screen thing to do. So if we go to where that address, here it is. So the highlighted right there is the size of that buffer of commands. So we walk into the fan club, Pikachu talks to that Clefairy. And then if we step over here, Pikachu is no longer on screen. And so if we walk up and down, you can see that there's some bytes being written into that buffer. And there's some things after it that is going to march onto the end of. So if we do this, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, almost 11, but not quite. We step over here, and that puts that 4 there. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and step over there to put a 4 here. So we had to do that because with Pikachu off screen, we can only place the values 1 and 2 because those are up and down. I forget which way around those are. And 4 is right, but that puts Pikachu back on screen, and we need to put 2 4s there, so that's why we had to do that whole thing twice. But this 4 represents the number of signs in the currently loaded map. And these here represent the coordinates of those signs. So we just created 4 signs on the map one of which is at coordinates 1, 1, and will use text ID 4, which, with the setup that we have here, that was done here in getting up to this state, will cause those items in the item bag to be executed as code. So, let's see here. That's D31E. So, if we go here and we speak to tile 1, 1, so those sounds are from some bytes that are commands for the text engine, and then it hits one that executes code, jumps to here, and you can see we are breakpointed on load the value 0204 into BC. That is the quantity and of our first item and type of the item after that. So if we step through it a bit, and we just have some instructions that we're here to essentially get through this without crashing anything, and get to this one, where we write the value of A to the byte pointed to by HL, which is the quantity of our 10th item. That is located a little bit before that. Where is that? Bag items. So if we step into that, this byte here, which is the quantity of our 10th item, we now have 255 of it. So that text is over. There's our stack. We'll swap it up so that we can do dry underflow with it. Here's the list size that we are handling, that we are decrementing there. Eventually that gets down to 1. Oh. 4, 3, 2, 1. So, and then for the dry underflow part, we toss 253 of it, leaving 2. Swap it with what is below. Right. I should have put that as the third item, so that there would still be a 255 stack after it. Let's... let's pretend that we actually got underflow from that. Sorry for that little messing up of that. Oh. Okay, we are, well, there's not going to be a, okay. Sometimes if you know, things can get a bit perturbed into doing things that you don't want if you accidentally activate them a second time. In this case, if you, well, in the Gen 1 Pokemon games, if you hit the instruction with encoding OXFF, it essentially calls an address that contains that instruction again and stomps over your whole address space with the bytes 0039. So I'm gonna give that another try actually, but all right. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that wasn't all the way. All right, Pikachu back on screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, almost 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, there's our breakpoint again, showing that we executed that code from our bag. I'm gonna step away from that tile lest any further accidents happen. And now we will try this one more time. Put it on the third item this time. Oh. No, not that. I am not used to these controls from this angle, but oh. There we go. All right. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, tossing 253, leaving us with 2. Swap these stacks to merge them, swap these stacks to merge them. There's our underflow. So here we are, scrolling down into the memory that's after the item list. Well, first we got this bunch of zeros that is the unused space for how large your bag is expected to go. So if we swap that there, that's from the rival name. The quantity of this is our options. If we decrease that by 1, by tossing one of it, notice that the text no longer scrolls in, but just appears. Then we can take that. We can swap it to there, toss 9 of it. And we can see that put, where was that byte again? That's, it goes there actually. We can walk outside, and there's that. So finding the setup for that, I had to work with, from all the possible trainer battles and item sources, had to find a sequence of items that would represent code that would not crash the game and would do something that we can derive underflow from. That was very tight constraints that we had to, had to have on what the binary representation of that code was. I filled an entire whiteboard wall of the computer club of the college I was going to at the time, figuring this out. But the funny thing about that is, as some more members of the the glitch research side of the community worked on this route, it actually turned out to be faster to do the corruption directly in the text engine commands themselves and not execute arbitrary code. But this essentially was a whole reroute of yellow no save corruption that, by eliminating that 1 in 8 chance with that 2-minute long retry that was 40 minutes into the run, making the run much less annoying to do, there was suddenly a lot more interest in that category. And it was a wonderful time. Just seeing so many people do that category and keep improving their times at it, and occasionally there was some finding of some other ways to further optimize it, and yeah, that was a good time. And well, that's all I really have for like as far as these demos go. But yeah, I wanted to say that for the catch-em-all categories that use a lot more glitches than these, but still you need to do essentially an NSC run to get underflow and then use that to do everything else that you end up doing in those runs. Like this resulted in reroutes of those categories, and it was a great time for those categories and just seeing what sorts of tricks would be found next and how those would affect the route and everything. During this time is also when when the SGDQ 2015 Catch-em-all Blue run by Shenanigans happened, which is who is watching this, and as like that, the routes from that time remain some of my favorite ones from that category, just from all of the memories associated with them and everything with just how actively people were finding things, playing around with them, finding ways to make these, put old glitches to new uses, and yeah, that I'll always enjoy that particular route from that time, and that remains one of my favorite GDQ couches I ever was on. Oh, I forgot to change that Twitter to a blue sky in this slide, but did at the beginning. But sorry, but I'm Stump230 basically everywhere. One of these times I'll stream again. But well, that's what I had to say about what how Pokemon glitch research of that time went and what rerouting around them was like. So thanks for being here, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Anyone have any? All right, I don't really see any, so oh, yes. So the question was, do these carry on into later gens, or is this just Gen 1? Gen 2 had a lot of similar things. In particular, the gold any %, which is something that I did some runs of back in that day too. At the time, that had a setup of, well, that allowed using a problem with the translated text of the name of the coin case to execute your box names as arbitrary code. That had, well, since you could type text into those and you had a lot of them right next to each other, there were a lot less constraints on what the binary representation of that code could be compared to what I had to do for this reroute of yellow NSC. But all of those routes have been supplanted by ones that involve interrupting a save, which is not considered as major of a thing in Gen 2 as in Gen 1, just because of differences in how things are represented there. And then Gen 3 and later moved to different architecture that has, that's a lot less loosey-goosey about memory access. So it's radically different, but there are still things you can do in those. I didn't really get into the glitch sides of those, so I can't really speak too much about it, but there are ways to break everything. They're just different as you go on. Yes? What was that? Yes, yellow Gengar. Oh, yes, there were. So the question was, is there more to my party than the Gengar here? So if we go back to the save states, we have a few different Pokemon here. We to have the stat experience bites of the Gengar in the proper position, the Gengar had to be 5th in the party. So we had to do things to get 3 other Pokemon along the way, which turned out to be buying the Magikarp, getting Charmander, and catching the Zubat you will inevitably encounter in Mount Moon. But that's why there's a Magikarp leading the party in this. Because this is after the setup that involved buying those items, arranging them in the right order, and swapping Gengar to 5th. A swap of Pokemon to the right spot in the party also is part of the usual setup for Brock Through Walls, because the first slot is not aligned correctly, but the second slot is. So, any other questions? All right, seeing none, no, that'll be that. Thanks very much for being here, and thanks to GDQ for having me for doing this.